Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio with Matthew Holt. We're going to break down some of the contenders for the Kentucky Derby. We're going to start with one, Gun Runner. He's coming off of back-to-back wins in the Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby. But I got to say, he's had perfect trips in both of them. And that's not to knock that he had a perfect trip, because this is the type of horse that works out those kind of trips because he's got tactical speed to put himself in a good spot, and that's what you need in a 20-horse field.
Yeah, undefeated under jockey Florent Garreau. We know Steve Asmussen always brings a stable of horses to this race, as he has again this year. So you got to love the trainer connections. And I think when you talk about horse racing handicappers, they always say the same thing: looking for a horse peaking at the right time. And when you look at this horse, an 82, 85 buyer, 92 buyer, 97 buyer, 100 buyer in his last race, maybe that 100 buyer isn't his peak and he runs a 102, 103. You got to love the fact that he has the 5 post here, so he's really far away from Exaggerator, Nyquist, who are going to be way down there in the 11, the 13, giving this horse plenty of room. He should be able to get out early with no early tactical speed on either side of him. We talked about the speed being way outside in this race, the 15 or the 20. This horse should be able to get to the inside quickly, set up right off the pace, make a nice run in the stretch as he's done. This is my favorite horse in this race.
Yeah, and I'll give you one thing that I do like with Gun Runner. The tactical speed is huge, because I'm really concerned about the horses that the stone cold closers, if they're going to be able to get the pace that they need up front. He's going to be close enough to whichever way the pace is, he's going to be able to push that button and make that early move when he needs to make it. And we talk about horses, as you said, peaking at the right time. And I can tell you, as a horse owner, where you see the biggest jump from horses is from 4, 5, 6 starts, because the first couple starts, they're green. They're still, they're learning things. And here's a horse that's only got 5 lifetime starts. So he's definitely not peaked yet, where some of these horses in the field already have 8, 9, 10 starts. They are what they are. I don't see them making that big jump. They've already peaked to where they're going to be. Not saying where they're at's not good enough, but you don't see that big jump that we haven't seen on the racing form yet. So Gun Runner is one of those horses that has the license to make a jump on Saturday. Another of the horses that, got to be considered as a contender is number 3, Creator. This is a horse, and you're going to hear me say this phrase with several horses. He's one of the stone cold closers that will be charging late, but he needs fast pace and a clean trip. And those are 2 big ifs you can't guarantee in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just talked about Gun Runner and Steve Asmussen. Here we go with another Steve Asmussen horse in number 3, Creator. Gotta love the jockey there. Ricardo Santana done a great job since he got the mount there. Coming off a big performance. Arkansas Derby last year was the same race that American Pharoah won on his trip to the Derby. So the connections are good. The road to the Derby's been good. The buyer, running 100 buyer in his last Derby prep's good. This horse brings a lot of intangibles into this race. I just wonder, like you do, does he get the pace enough up front? Because he definitely needs more of a late run than Gun Runner, the other Steve Asmussen horse.
He comes from the clouds. He's so far out of it, but he's gotten to the board 7 out of 8 times, in his career. The other one, and this is, we'll talk about number 15, Outwork. This is one of the 2 only true speed horses in the race. And that's what's going to, got my concern. Are we going to get an honest fractions? Because with only 2 speed horses, are they going to be able to settle on the front end? And we saw that a few years ago with a horse like Shackleford that got on the front end and was able to, rate himself and relax and carry that early speed, far into the stretch. Can Outwork, off of that New York performance in the Wood Memorial, could he get the job done?
Well, we talked about the weather that weekend, and we all, really true horse players know that front runners tend to run better in the slop. So in a sloppy race, it was no surprise to see Outwork get it done in the slop, in the mud in New York. So no surprise there. You don't love the 15 hole necessarily as a front runner, but it's not the worst, because you're not going to bang around as much as the 14 as the secondary there. So we'll see. You have to love the connections. The connections themselves, this is a problem I have with this horse, is the Pletcher Johnny V connections means you're not going to get value, because all the horse guys are going to go, oh, Johnny V on a Pletcher horse, and then suddenly you get all this wagering activity on it. And don't be surprised if by post time this is the 3rd choice, when really he might be the 8th or 9th rated horse.
He has been training well. That's one thing in his favor. But as good as Todd Pletcher has been, and this is one of the best trainers in the country. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. He hasn't had success here. He's had one horse win the Derby. I think it was Super Saver.
Yeah.
But it has just been dismal. I mean, not only is his horses not won the Derby. His horse, a lot of them, they don't hit the board. I mean, he's got a lot of 8th and 9th place finishes. Horses that come in here that we're getting a lot of talk. And to elaborate on one thing for our average horse fan, when you said that horses in the mud, front runners tend to do better. One of the reasons for that is horses are like people. They don't like mud thrown in their face. And whenever you're on a muddy track and you're a horse coming from behind, if you've ever seen one of them after the race, whenever they're going back to the barn to get washed off, they've got mud all over them. The jockeys have 7 sets of goggles that they keep dropping down in that, and a lot of horses don't react well to the mud being thrown in their face. And it's why on a muddy track, a lot of times too, a jockey will keep his horse wider to try to avoid getting everything thrown in his face, which again, you're covering more ground, which is a negative as well.
And we know we're going to get great weather here this weekend, and we don't always get good weather for the Derby, but we're supposed to this year. So I think I would look elsewhere from that horse.
Absolutely. And the last one that I'm going to bring up, and the only reason I do it, we've done a lot of podcasts together when we talk about sports betting, and we go, how much value do you put on home court, with this team? Is this a stronger home court? There's one horse in this race that has a home court advantage, and that's Brody's Cause. This horse has only raced one race out of his career outside of the state of Kentucky. He's trained by Dale Romans. This is his home track. He knows the track well. He's already raced on this track, won on this track. Does that give him an advantage over some of these other horses?
Similar to Outwork, I feel like this horse individually right here, Brody's Cause, has the least amount of value of any horse. He's been well talked about. The people in the Midwest, for whatever reason, are clamoring over this horse. I'm not sure why. To your point, he's going to have the home field edge. People going there are going to want to bet on him. I know a lot of people that are familiar and friends with his connections, so I think there's going to be a lot of attention and a lot of wagering activity on this horse. What I always go back to is what you said. Look, by the 5th or 6th race, you kind of get an idea of where a horse can get to at least. This horse's best buyer is a 95. You cannot win the Kentucky Derby running a 95 speed buyer. You have to at least approach triple digits. This horse has never done it. For that reason, I don't know how we can put this horse, factor him into having a chance at winning the Derby. I think, look, he won the Bluegrass. Everybody loves that he won a big prep race in Kentucky. Now the Derby's in Kentucky. To me, I don't give this horse much of a chance.
All right. Well, those are the contenders for this one. We're going to be back, and we've talked about the favorites. We've talked about the main contenders. What's that leave? Some big price long shots. That's up next. WagerTalk.com.